Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to SWAT MMA. This is episode number 168. I'm Jarrod, hanging out with Paul.
What up?
Coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada. And today we're going to be smoking and talking all about the aftermath of UFC 290. We're going to be talking about the upcoming BKFC 47, which sees middleweight champ Dave Mundell defend against number one contender Mike Richmond. And we're going to spend some time talking about the upcoming announcement of one Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury. But first, you know what time it is. Grab that stash. Fire it on up. Let's get into the weed of the week.
Smoke weed every day.
Today we have a classic strain. We got some super sour diesel. I know this is one of your personal favorites.
Dude, I love all the diesel. Sour,
yeah.
super sour, all of it.
So this is a sativa cross between super silver haze and sour diesel.
Super Silver Haze is one of my favorite strains as well.
And then also we have some Tangerine Dream as well in the bong there.
Dude, this Tangerine Dream is some of the densest, stickiest bud I've picked up in a long time.
So Tangerine Dream is a cross of G13 Afghani and Neville's A5 Haze.
I've not smoked Neville's A5 Haze before.
I have not either.
Honestly, it doesn't even sound like a familiar strain.
No. But definitely have had some Afghani and some G13.
What do you think of the sour diesel? I know it's not your favorite taste in herb, but
It's not my favorite taste, but I like the high that I get from the diesel strains.
yeah, me too, for sure. Oh, my Lord. All right, before we start smoking anything else, we want to thank the sponsor of this segment, which is Binoid. You can get some great deals on their CBD and Delta-9 THC products if you simply go to our website, SWATMMA.com. Click on the Cool Stuff button. If you follow the links from there, you can help out the podcast, and you can get yourself about 15% off your first order from those guys. Now, hope you're smoking on something delicious with us, if that's your thing. Let's get into some combat sports, Paul.
What a wonderful weekend we had just pass up on UFC 290. Really good event.
It's about time we had a nice UFC card. They've been some fucking duds lately, bro.
Yeah, this shit was a banger, though. From start to finish, we had 4 fights, and within the first 40 seconds, the first time in UFC modern era.
Did you say they all ended?
Yeah, all ended in less than 40 seconds.
4 fights on the card.
Mm-hmm. We had a 17-second knockout in the prelims, another 20-second knockout in strawweight contest in the prelims as well. Then
you don't see that a lot in the women's strawweight division, let's be honest. You don't see a lot of knockouts, period, let alone first round, 17-second fucking slaughters like that. We even saw Bo Nickal put his fists up and get a quick knockout, which we'll talk about a little later as well.
Yeah, as well as Robbie Lawler. Let's start there. So we had Robbie Lawler coming into his retirement fight, taking on Nico Price, who's always got some fireworks in there.
Yeah, he's a great action fighter.
But Robbie just ran him over, man. 38 seconds into the fight, he puts Nico to sleep.
Yeah, and 8 shots landed, and that was it.
Yeah, and it was one of those ones, too, where started as a combo, just, grabbed him in the clinch and just laid hammers on him and put him out. Like, he was out before he hit the ground.
It was really nice to see. Not that I want to see Nico get knocked out, but I don't like it when MMA fighters, especially legends like Lawler, they fucking go out on a loss or they get knocked the fuck out, and you're like, damn, that sucks, man. It's really nice to see a guy state that it's going to be his last fight, then go out and just fucking put on a vintage performance of what he's known for, get the big win.
Well, and I feel like there's just been this weird narrative around Robbie's name going into this fight that he was like this washed-up guy. Robbie had won 3 in a row before he won this fight too. His last loss was in 2019 versus Colby Covington. Like that is like people. Yeah, he's an older, seasoned vet, and I do think he went out at the right time. And I think that it was a great way to put a cherry on top of a historic Hall of Fame career. But this was not some washed up guy. That even the betting odds had a very similar, connotation to them because it was, I think it was plus 340 or
Yeah,
something
he
that
was. Like,
Robbie
we had
was.
some technical difficulties on the show last week, so unfortunately we weren't able to upload. But I mean, we had called that Robbie Lawler Nico Price fight as the best value bet on the fucking card with those odds.
Yeah.
And it proved out exactly that way.
Yeah, so just a great way to go out for Robbie, and I really like the way the UFC handled the post fight. They had put together a little video package of, just some of his greatest performances over the years, and he has really kind of been a company guy when you talk about his championship run. He fought everyone they put in front of him to the point where I just feel like
There were only
Robbie's
like two guys.
he's a
basically, yeah.
savage, bro. He's just always been a savage. Always been a whoever you put in front of me, I'm gonna fuck them up kind of guy, and he'll be missed for sure. But congrats to him on his retirement and moving forward.
Dude, how about him and Rory McDonald's fight for that title?
Oh, dude, that was literally probably the greatest fight in the history of mixed martial arts.
It's definitely one of them. And I mean, look what it did to Rory McDonald. Rory McDonald was the heir
Never the
apparent
same.
to fucking GSP.
Yeah.
And he was never right after that fight. He was never the same dude. It just took a piece of his fucking soul.
I feel like there's certain performances where a fighter can look back in their career and that happens, and that's definitely one of them.
So it was really awesome seeing fucking Robbie go out like that. What about your boy Bo Nickal?
I feel like he proved all his supporters right and all the doubters wrong.
He had a late replacement. Another seven. It was an undefeated prospect coming in, 7-0. Bo's only 4-0 in mixed martial arts. There were some people trying to shit on Bo, saying he's fighting cans or whatever. Look, he's fighting guys he should be fighting at this stage. He's fucking 4-0. He's fighting a guy that's 7-0.
Yeah. Not only that, is a big thing that people are not talking about is the fact that if Bo is this prospect that people say he is, it is a part of the upper echelon that people like myself have put him in. He's supposed to do that.
He's not supposed to go out and have a close fight with
no,
these guys.
and he's not. That's the thing. So what are these people's big knock on him? That he's getting a push in the promotional side of things, because that happens to tons and tons.
Well,
of
he's literally
basically
the best blue chip prospect in MMA and the UFC for sure.
Yeah.
Like there's not like they're pushing him because he's Conor or even worse if he's like Logan Paul or someone that just has like a following that are trying to milk off of it and he's not worthy of the promotional push. I kind of get that. And some people had questions, say, about Conor's actual skills when he first came in.
Mm-hmm.
And some people would like to shit on the push that he was getting because he only put money in there. But dude, Bo Nickal's getting the push because he's legit as fuck.
Yeah. And I really feel he showed that there are not very many holes in his game.
No, he went out there and instead of using his wrestling in really obvious ways, he instead used it to set up some very strong punching and gets a clean KO.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you knock someone out inside 38 seconds with 7 strikes, you did something right. You know what I mean? And another thing is that I feel a lot of people don't talk about with Bo is his overall demeanor inside that cage. I feel like is a huge difference in his mental game and his advantages within fighting. Just because he's been there, done that, bro. He was wrestling in front of fucking 20,000-30,000 people when he was fucking 14, bro.
Right.
Like, there's no moment that he's going to crumble under. And I feel like that's what people, are waiting for. They're waiting for this big moment that he's just going to, all the pressure's going to become too much. If he loses in his MMA career, what the fuck ever. Everybody loses. But these fights, he's supposed to win these, man. And he's doing it in very, very interesting fashions. You know what I mean? Whether it's, he's got 5 fights in his career. He's got 2 knockouts inside of 30 seconds and then 3 submissions. What more can you ask of this guy at this point?
No, nothing more. I think moving forward is the time for him to get a solid test
Yeah, I feel like
against
he's
somebody that's ranked at least in the bottom of
someone
the
in the
top
bottom
15.
15. I think is coming soon.
Look, if we're looking at the rankings right now, let's talk about his next opponent. If we go to number 15, we got Chris Curtis. 14, we got Andre Muniz. We got Ivanov. We got Gastelum, Gastelum's now dropped down to welterweight, so he's really out of that mix.
Yeah.
We've got Brendan Allen. Then we're getting up to the Jack Hermansons, the Doldes, and then Brunson, Strickland, Costa, and Du Plessis round out the top. And of course, I don't forget about Whitaker in there. But
Yeah.
you're not going to match up with Whitaker. But I mean, I'm thinking of Chris Curtis or even a Jack Hermanson.
I was just thinking Jack Hermanson. If you want to go all in, you go Jack Hermanson. If you want to go somewhere that is, not necessarily safe, but more of a stepping stone, or not even stepping stone, but just like a next level kind of thing. I think like a Andre Muniz or Chris Curtis or
Nasruddin.
yeah, or Brendan Allen too. Brendan Allen's another one where he's kind of in the middle of the rankings. He's been that prospect, and I don't know. It'd be a very interesting.
Yeah, he's
fight,
got
I
a lot
think.
of experience. I mean, he's 22-5.
Yeah.
That's a.
It's a lot of
I would see the path for Bo Nickel running something like this. Somebody like, say, let's just say Chris Curtis, because he's at the bottom of the rankings in the top 15 right now.
Yeah.
Let's go with that. And he beats Chris Curtis, then you move him up to either Hermanson or even so far as like a Derek Brunson. And he beats those guys, and you can either move him to a title shot or match him up against like Marvin Vittori and see what happens. That being the final test before taking on Du Plessis or Adesanya or whoever's got the title at that time.
Yeah. Or if you really want to get spicy, you could have him fight Kamzat down the road.
Yeah, I mean, Kamzat's probably going to be in those rankings at some point, but right now I can only figure that A, he's got health problems, or no, that's probably B, is A, the UFC's punishing him for that egregious weight miss and then his horrible attitude about the whole thing. And they're being like, nah, son, you're going to sit on your ass for that. Or he's got some sort of health problems or drug fail.
Yeah.
Because, USADA quit publishing the fucking drug fails.
Yeah.
So he could have pissed hot on some shit and then be sat down and we just don't know. Now, he's never had those type of problems before. I'm not trying to shit on the guy's name as far as that goes, but I'm just looking at possibilities to why he's been sitting for so long at this point.
Yeah, and there's been also like rumored fights that were going to be announced, but you never really materialized.
Him and Costa were a thing for a minute.
Now him and Usman has been kind of in the news cycle.
That's kind of pussy to me though, because or weak for me though, because he wants Usman to move up to 185.
Yeah.
And Usman
could fight 85.
I mean, he could, but not really.
Yeah.
I mean, fucking 15 pounds onto his championship weight, and he's old. I just not seen it. If
he was in his prime, I would say it would.
I mean, you can't call out the smaller guys and expect them to move up in weight to fight you. And I don't think that he can cut that weight anymore. I think he's a fucking middleweight Chimaev at this point.
Yeah.
Until the UFC says otherwise. But what do you think it is? You think he's just getting punished for all that shit? I mean, he fucked up bad, and then his attitude was like, ha ha ha, fuck you guys.
I don't know. It really just depends, because I think what happened also on that night is he lost a lot of shine. And with that being said, is there this like crazy want and need for people to watch him fight right now? I just don't think it's there, is it? As much as it was before.
His fan base tends to me, I think, is a lot more Middle Eastern and part of the world is, or Russian or Chechen or whatever the fuck that block of the country is. So it's hard for me to gauge here in America. He's not like a popular dude, really. So
yeah, he's just kind of seen as like this force type thing, But I also feel like the UFC has made so many mistakes in how they've brought that guy up. That's what worries me about Bo Nickel. Like, if the UFC handles it right, then he'll fight as the ladder goes up. If the UFC handles it wrong, you'll see what we were talking about a couple weeks back with MMA fighting, putting that article out saying, had Du Plessis lost this weekend, that Bo Nickel should have been next for the title shot, which is just nuts. But
I don't need to give Bo Nickel a title shot.
No.
He can't beat Israel Adesanya right now.
Yeah, it'd be real tough. Unless he just straight wrestle fucked him and like Izzy just had no chance. But I just don't see that happening. His
I-
striking is too good to let someone get in on you like that quick.
I don't understand people's problem when, like, if he's fighting guys like this is what he's supposed to be doing and people complain. If they rush him into a fucking good top tier fighter and he gets beat, then people are gonna fucking complain.
Yeah.
And by people I mean MMA fandom.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with how they're with fighters of his stature being
Brought along.
the correct way. Even like they did Connor. Like I thought Connor was brought up the right way.
Yeah.
I mean I really do.
Yeah, you had him fight some other prospects.
I mean, he started off with Marcus fucking Brimage.
Brimage,
you know
and
what
then
I mean?
Holloway, and then
Then he was into the Holloways and the Poiriers. And that Dennis Seaver thing, that was just a fucking fill-in fight because he didn't want to wait.
Yeah.
People try to throw shade on that, but he didn't earn his title shot off Dennis Seaver. He earned the fucking title shot off beating Poirier, and then decided to take a fight in the meantime.
And not only that,
take a shot.
And that's the thing that people don't realize too, and that's why Bo might be fast-tracked to a title shot too. Is like, let's just throw this out there. So let's say that in his next fight they do give him someone like a Jack Hermanson, and then Adesanya were to beat Du Plessis. You have a whole division kind of similar to featherweight at that time that has been cleared out by the champion, and you just defeated someone who's a serious contender. At one point, Jack Hermanson was like what people.
Yeah, he was a legit contender for
like. I don't want to sound like a dick when I say this, but Jack Hermanson was Du Plessis 5 years ago, but his fight to get him the title would have been Cannonier, and he lost. This fight, you had Du Plessis beat Whitaker, and now he gets his shot. And that's just kind of how the sport goes, you know what I mean? And if Bo were to go in and beat someone like that, I could see them giving him a title shot off that.
They might, the way the division is. If Du Plessis wins, then
they get fucking Pereira a title shot off beating Bruno Silva, who's not even ranked in the weight.
True, but that was only due to his history with Izzy, though.
Yeah, but also
if he hadn't had that history, he was just some guy.
No, I feel that. I feel that, but I'm just saying he's in the same breath as also like a highly touted prospect that entered the UFC. People need to understand that point of view, but also is like when you're this highly skilled person and you're just rounding your skills out, there's fights you need to see just to see where they're at, and I think this was one of those fights. Everyone kept talking about how Bo was submission, takedown. He's like, all right, let me show you my hands real quick. Goes out there, uses his hands, gets a KO. And I think onward he goes. Onward. And I think we move onward as well. So then we, after that, saw probably what I would call the fight of the night. It was Dan Hooker taking on Jalen Turner. And just like an absolute banger back and forth fight that was just chaos for 15 minutes.
Well, this is a 155-pound fight. I don't know how Jalen Turner usually makes that weight. I've always wondered. And he missed weight by 2 pounds on this one.
Yeah.
And technically
3, but they get the fucking...
Yeah, they get that extra pound allowance. He weighed 158. Usually, in my recollection, I don't have all of the numbers in front of me, but typically it seems that the fighter who misses weight wins because I'd attribute that to just... They don't deplete their body as much, you know what I mean? Plus, they've got the extra fucking weight. But this time we saw Dan Hooker. It was just a new Dan Hooker all the way around. I mean, he looked different. He won. He righted that ship. He had the blonde hair. He got the fucking tats back. I mean, it wasn't really new. It was Dan Hooker that we've seen, but I mean, he looked different.
Yeah.
He fought well. He really took it to him. I thought he was going to lose that fight.
He fought well for a little bit. In that first round when he got dropped, I was like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see it as a split decision victory, though. I thought it was a pretty clear victory for Dan, but...
I thought it was very back and forth, though, in that second round. The second round...
the second round for Dan?
No, I'm sorry. Third round.
In the second round, he would have... If there was 10 more seconds in that fight, the shit's over, because that choke was locked up. Like, the second round ends, for those of you that might not have seen it, Dan Hooker's beating the shit out of Jalen Turner, takes his back, and has got him in a choke. Like, that's it. It's just a matter of fucking time.
Yeah.
And then the bell rings. And so...
I just feel also that, like, Dan Hooker's jiu-jitsu's not that great, because anybody else would have locked that in inside that 15 seconds. He, like, wasn't even really looking for it. It was just kind of laid in his lap. He's like, oh, shit, word.
But how do you score that round, though? I mean, when someone is that close to victory, how is that not swing it to 10-8. Like, you've got a guy who was a hair's breadth away from winning the round, the fight.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not a 10-8? Like, he was whooping that ass for the last, like, minute, and then literally you're, like, maybe 10 seconds away from victory. Like, it's locked in. It wasn't like, oh, he almost knocked him out. It's the equivalent of, like, being saved by the bell on a 10 count.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I feel that Dan Hooker had one mistake that makes that round not a 10-8. Because I think there was an exchange, I think like about a minute left in the fight, where Hooker kind of like knocks him down, but it's kind of one of those knockdowns where he's like running away and like bounces off the fence and goes down. And like in that case, your opponent's wobbly. And Dan Hooker just like grappled it out with him. And I was just so confused by it. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Just let him up. Because all you do is let him up, throw 4 strikes, and he's going to bed. Like, and I feel like that was really, really just a mistake on his end. I feel like if he just would have stood Turner up, he would have been over in the second round. It would have been a TKO. It was just like, I don't know if maybe it was because Hooker was tired too. Because both guys were fucking gassed.
You mean TKO in the third?
The second.
Oh, you mean if he would have stood him up before?
Yeah, if he would have stood
up
before going for the choke, just stood up and just put him to bed. I thought, but I mean, the grappling side it did turn into that choke, but I just feel he didn't even need the choke. He could have just had the ref stand him up, and Turner was so out on his feet, man, that like it was there for the taking, kind of like what you're saying. But I just feel like the submission versus if he would have stood up and maybe knocked him down one more time and then the bell rang, I thought would have made it more of a 10-8 than him pretty much passing his guard when they're both completely exhausted.
Well, Hooker did outstrike him in every single round as well. I mean, for what that's worth.
Yeah, the only reason he really won round 1 is because of knockdown.
Well, it was a great fight. Hooker gets a split decision victory. Rights the ship for him there. And,
it was a little rough road there for a minute.
Fun fight.
I feel like people discredit Dan Hooker a little too much, though, because you got to think about his strength of schedule also. You're talking about his losses were to Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, like great fighters. Paul Felder, he won the Felder fight, never mind. But,
well, he did lose to Arnold Allen, which kind of...
Dude, that fight was a banger, though,
The fight was a banger, but I mean... He got outstruck 14-49 in that thing. It kind of took some shine off him. And then the Makhachev loss isn't bad in retrospect.
It was like on 2 days' notice.
You know what I mean? But I mean, prior to that, he's got the win against Nasrat. Then he lost to Chandler. He lost to Poirier. Beat Felder. Beat Al, the real estate agent. Quinzel. Beat Vic. Lost to Edson Barboza.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. He's had these
Burns, though. I mean,
he's had these
fucking Burns.
He's had these trends, but like people like love to write him off for some reason. Like everyone's kind of like, "Oh, this is it." Huh? I'm like, dude, no, this is not it. Like, because one of my friends was telling me, he's like, if Hooker loses here, it's kind of done for him, huh?
Look at the stats on the Poirier fight.
Poirier and him was a fucking war, dude. Oh my god.
Yeah. And look at these initial stats. Significant strikes: Dan Hooker 155, Dustin Poirier 153.
Yeah.
Takedowns 4 for Hooker. 1 for Poirier. Sub attempts, 4 for Poirier, 0 for Hooker. And he loses the decision. I mean, that's a close fucking fight.
Yeah. And the Michael Chandler and the Islam ones are like kind of like Islam. It was on a week's notice, like fill in, and everyone saw a takedown submission coming. In the Chandler one, that was like Michael Chandler's moment, dog. It was his first fight in the UFC, and he's an elite competitor. Like, losses to elite competitors don't really hurt your record like
there's not much
people want to say. You know what I mean? Sometimes you shoot for the moon and you land on a cloud. And you got to be okay with that.
Well, running off the top of the card here, we had a really highly anticipated showdown between Robert Whittaker and Dricus Du Plessis. And a lot of people were, in the lead up to this fight, really writing Du Plessis off for, I guess, just reasons because he's easy to shit on because he looks weird. I don't mean his physical looks, but his fighting style is a little awkward.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I didn't think he was going to win.
I didn't think he could beat him. And not only did
Whittaker's
he go out and beat Whittaker, but
fucking one of the top of the food chain fighters, probably in the history of the middleweight division.
Dude, he's only lost to Adesanya.
Yeah.
in that division.
Yeah, he's had some great fights too at middleweight. Like looking back on like his fights with Yoel and his championship run, like it's just going into this fight, I just didn't think he was going to lose.
But and not only lose, it was he gets KO'd at
Yeah.
223 around 2 in a fight that he got his ass whooped. I mean, 62-31 on the total strikes. And Du Plessis said he had some really difficult problems breathing through his nose throughout his career, and he had surgery to open up his septum and his fucking nasal passages.
He's a real mouth breather, though.
Yeah, he's gonna be. Yeah, he's got. Well, that makes sense. So if you think
Yeah.
about it, if he hasn't been able to breathe through his fucking nose this whole time, he's still gonna be a mouth breather.
Yeah.
But
Scared
the
me
amount of
there for a
oxygen
couple
that he's getting is really gonna go up. Like that's fact.
Yeah.
Like that's gonna help his cardio, which I hear has been a bit of a knock on the guy. But look, he came out and shut everybody the fuck up and dominated Robert Whittaker and did something only Israel Adesanya's done to him, and that was in the first fight. He just went 5 rounds with Izzy.
Yeah.
So,
and it was like with a jab.
Dude's got some power. He's a big man.
Yeah. He's
And
fucking big. Yeah, he's
he's
got a
very
big
heavy.
frame.
He's got a big frame. He's pretty muscular. I mean, Izzy's a
Kinda
little bit
top-heavy.
taller.
Like if you look at his frame, like he has like a big back. Like
Yeah.
he just looks like a bear.
I'm looking forward to the fight between him and Adesanya. And I'll just say this because I don't want to drag this topic out too much, but
Yeah.
I really fucking hope that Israel Adesanya does not continue to act in this manner as he did in the cage last night. That was bizarre. I'd like to chalk that up to being a little bit drunk.
Yeah.
That's not the fucking what we need in this shit. And seriously, if that's what he thinks this is, someone needs to sit him down and explain to him there's a big difference between fucking race and nationality.
Yeah.
Like he's out there screaming N-words and talking about 23andMe DNA tests. Like, bro, he's African. I'm sorry you don't like it that he might be white, but he's fucking born in Africa. He lives in Africa. He trains in Africa. He's not an insult to say that he's going to be the first African champ who brings the belt to Africa. Sorry, that rubs Izzy the wrong fucking way, and he wants to turn it into some race shit. It's a national thing. Like that's why he kept talking about fucking South Africa. Everybody's like, it's great for South Africa. It's good for the country.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
And you know what I
So-
do think Izzy's like, I love Izzy, but he has this thing where when he knows there's like he's a great like talker on the mic, right? But when he knows there's going to be a certain topic that's going to come up, he tries to like get in front of it. Like almost like cringy though. It was very similar like when he fought Pereira. He was like going into his fight versus Cannonier. He's over here like talking about, yeah, next time we fight, I'm gonna put you on skates and all this shit even before the fight came because he knows what fights are coming and like it's just like a different vibe that like it makes it sound so much more cheap when because it shows like you're afraid.
He's,
Like I hate to be like that.
He's already in his head,
Yeah.
like rent free as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, just for stating facts.
Yeah.
Like so clearly it bothered Izzy. Like
And maybe he's not. Maybe scared is not the right word because nobody's scared.
nobody's
I'm not
scared in
saying
this
scared.
game, but,
I
like-
just mean like it gets him going. Like it's a fight that like gets his brain like, oh shit, this is a losable fight, and like I'm gonna get ahead of this, and I'm gonna try to get in his head. But the thing is, you trying to get so far ahead of it and try to be so alpha, like it's cringy because it's like, dude, you know this is a good fight. You're
it's
just,
cringy, and what Du Plessis is saying is not has anything to do with the fucking pigment levels in your skin.
no.
Like I don't like that shit is just so out of left field. Like it was like he really didn't understand. Like I don't know, but let's just hope it's not that. I don't mind. I'm all for shit talking. I don't want to see some fucking stupid racial shit that doesn't
not
have
only
anything
that,
to do with the fucking fight.
It's grasping for straws when you're and ignoring the overall basis of like it's a good fight on paper no matter
Yeah.
how you like turn it. You don't need to bring all that extra bullshit in. It's
No,
a
it's
great
fine.
fight. It sells itself.
Yeah.
There's no reason to bring all
Especially
that
with him
shit.
just sparking fucking Whittaker like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
like, it
everything
sells
is there. It's gonna be a good fight.
Mhm.
Let's leave that bullshit aside.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that was just a drunken night and we can just move on and not fucking talk about that shit no more.
Yeah, hopefully.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And Izzy can't win the argument. It's like even Du Plessis, he said to him in the ring, he was like, He's like, well, I am African, but I'm not your brother.
Yeah.
But he's not wrong. Like, he is
Yeah.
fucking African. I don't know why that upsets fucking Izzy so much.
don't know.
Like, Jesus Christ, bro. Deal with it. But it's going to be a great fight. I'm really looking forward to it. And, I mean, I would like to think Izzy wins that fight because he's one of the best martial artists on the planet. But after seeing this, this thing with Whitaker, I think you really got to give Dricus a solid shot here.
Yeah,
He has intangibles.
Yeah. He's got a very well-rounded game. I think one thing with Dricus that I would say is his, like, maybe my one thing I would say about his game that is negative, that he's kind of a good at everything but not great at one thing kind of guy.
Yeah.
And Izzy is like a great at one thing kind of guy and pretty solid at everything else. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I feel like could be the difference in this fight. It's going to come down to, because that's kind of how Marvin Vettori was too. You know, like Marvin could hit hard. He had solid wrestling and all that shit. And that's kind of how Dricus is. He hits hard. He's got pretty solid wrestling. He's got good kicks. And he's got, you know, a good game plan. But it's all going to come down to what kind of fight is going to take place in that octagon. Is it going to be a standing war? Because if it is, I think Izzy beats him. But is it going to become, you know, something where Dricus goes after the takedown early to try to, you know, tire Izzy out, and then later in the fight, you know, tries to deploy some bombs. It really comes down to the game plan. Like, this fight is close enough on paper that I think, depending on each guy's game plan, will depend on who wins the fight.
Well, you know what they want to do is have it fucking in 8 weeks in the card in Sydney.
I saw
which
that.
Is asking a lot from
crazy.
Dricus. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a bit much. I wouldn't.
But there's also something to be said about,
because with 8 weeks, that means he gets like a 6-week camp, and he's got at least a week of recovery after a fight. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
So now he's down to a 5-week camp. In reality, is that fair for somebody who normally people are getting 10 to 12-week camps to prepare for Israel Adesanya? I don't know. But that's asking a lot.
That's asking a lot, but life ain't fair. Sorry, Don.
True. No, it's true.
I hate to be like that. But when a promotion is trying to promote a fight, they got a timetable, and you got that fight or you don't got that fight, motherfucker, you signed that contract.
Well, but that's the thing, though. He's in a unique position because who the fuck else are they going to give it to? If he says no, I'm not going to be ready by then. Who's he going to fight?
Strickland.
Okay, I forgot.
Sean Strickland.
I legit forgot about
Sean Strickland. Will take a fight in 3 days from now.
Okay, you're right.
You know what I mean?
I forgot about Strickland.
Strickland will take a fight tomorrow. Like, it doesn't. He will not bat an eye.
No, you're 100% true.
You know what I mean?
Honestly, I'd rather see Strickland fight him in 8 weeks and let Du Plessis have an actual fight camp and recovery time, because I think it's a great fight. I mean, look, I like Sean, actually. You know, I like watching him fight. He's a pretty interesting character.
Yeah.
I don't think he beats Israel Adesanya.
No, I don't think so either.
I mean, I don't think he has the intangibles there that make up for the clear advantages that Izzy has. I think Du Plessis has some intangible things, like just like his awkwardness, that his weird movement, the fact he can take incredible punches and just keep coming. Yeah. He seems to have the gas tank problems possibly solved. There's some things that are like, Strickland doesn't.
I think the size is the biggest thing.
He's very big.
When you're talking about Israel Adesanya, he usually has the size advantage going into these middleweight title fights, and I think Dricus is bigger than him because Dricus has a bigger build. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
Izzy's a little bit
similar
taller,
frame, bigger build.
Fucking way thicker, for sure.
Yep.
Well, we'll talk about that one as soon as it gets announced. For sure, we know what's happening. But either way, I'm happy with a Strickland title shot because Du Plessis can just wait. It's not going to go to anybody else.
Yeah.
And Strickland kind of deserves it, honestly. He's been around a while. Give him his
title
title shot.
Kind of got screwed his 2 fights ago.
Yeah, with that
but then put on a great performance last week, 2 weeks ago.
All right, what about this fucking flyweight title fight, bro?
What fucking fight?
Brandon Moreno, for the first time in 2 years, 3 years, whatever, is fighting somebody not named Figueiredo. So that was cool. I was happy for that. I have a little known fact about Brendan Moreno I'd like to share with you. If you might not have heard, he is actually of Mexican descent, and he fights out of the country of Mexico. So he is a actual Mexican mixed martial artist and a champion, which I think is great. I just didn't know if you'd heard.
Not one.
So I think that's tremendous. But he was defending his title against Alejandra Pantoja, who actually had a victory over Moreno in tough.
Technically, too.
And then he had a victory over Moreno in the UFC already as well. A couple different guys fought this past weekend, though. Much higher skill levels on display.
Yeah.
That tough fight was pretty wild.
Yeah.
They were both real raw.
Yeah.
They're both
especially Moreno.
Yeah, they're both a lot improved in their first fight, and then this one was just.
It's a fucking banger.
So. It was a split decision victory for Alejandro, so he gets the title, but I did not see that as I didn't have any clear.
I thought it was unanimous.
What am I trying to say? I thought it was unanimous. Yeah, I thought it was pretty clear who won that fight. I had it at 4-1 on my scorecard.
I had it 4-1. I guess I could see where you could do it 3-2, but did you see the actual scorecards? They were talking about it on the broadcast. They were talking about one ref had it Moreno
49-46 Moreno.
No,
right?
One of them had Yeah, that's true, but I'm talking round by round. One judge had it that Moreno won 1, 2, and 3, and Pantoja won 4 and 5. I was like, how the fuck did you get there? Because he definitely knocked Moreno down in the first round. And then the second round, he definitely beat Pantoja in the second round.
Yeah, the first round was
the
clearly...
third round was a minute and a half of striking by Moreno, and then 3.5 minutes of Pantoja on his back trying to finish a choke.
Yeah.
What the fuck are we doing here?
I have no idea.
What the fuck are we doing here? The decision at the end, luckily, is what it was.
Yeah, the right guy won the fight.
But that judge should have to turn his scorecard in and say, what the fuck did you see?
Well, we talked on our last episode when we both came up with solutions for the judging in MMA. Part of it for both of our viewpoints was some accountability for these guys, both good and bad. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be fucking public. You don't have to get on fucking social media and put up with trolls. But there's got to be somebody you're fucking answering to.
And not only that, even though the decision went the right direction, that should still be reviewed as what were you thinking in that scorecard? Because that kind of stuff, all it takes is 2 bad judges. All it takes.
Well, yeah, and it doesn't matter what we're talking about in life. If you want to improve anything, first you have to be able to measure it. You can't fucking improve something you can't measure.
Yeah, true.
So that's why they have to be accountable, both good and bad for something, so we can measure what we're doing here and then seek to make it better.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's a big part of it. But in the end, it was just a really, really good fight. Very close fight that ends in a big win for Pantoja, and seems like going forward he's probably going to fight Brandon Royval, considering Royval weighed in as a backup. So it would seem that probably Brandon Royval, Pantoja is the next fight you make for that title. Moreno, I don't really know where he goes from here. I think he might. Does he stick around at 25? Does he go up to 135? Do we see him fight Figueiredo for the belt in 2025?
Oh, stop, Paul. Shut your mouth. Don't you tempt the MMA gods. Dear fucking Lord. No more fights between Moreno
Figueiredo's fighting Dominic Cruz, dog. He's going to be at the top if he beats Dominic Cruz. Moreno steps in. He fights Cejudo like they were going to say that they were going to. That fight happens. He beats Cejudo. He beats Dominic Cruz.
I'm going to quit watching the UFC if that happens.
Aljo gives up the title because he's going to 45, so it's a vacant title. And you have Brandon Moreno versus Davison Figueiredo, number 6.
For the vacant bantamweight title, I'm going to throw up.
Is it 5 or 6?
No disrespect to either of those guys. They're great, but I can't see them fight no more, bro. No more. 2 years, that's what we got. 4 in a row.
3 years. Fuck.
No more. But yeah, that'd be crazy. But Moreno's a great fucking fighter.
He is.
This is not anywhere near the end of his career.
No.
Or not even close. But I'm not sure what he does from this point on in the immediate future.
It's just tough because it's the same way in the reason why Davis Figueiredo had to move to 135 because how are you going to justify to the fans like a third fight?
Right.
Like this guy's now or a fourth fight. Sorry, he's beat this side 3 times now, and also how do you convince his management and him that Brandon Moreno gets a fourth fight?
Dude, after being down 3-0, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
no.
I feel you.
All right, so moving on to
Well, real quick, I want to say that
Yeah.
I did like in the aftermath of the victory, you know, when Alejandro first gets into the fucking octagon, he's getting booed pretty heavy, and then he just made a really impassioned speech, I thought, or whatever you want to call it, where you know, talk about moving to America, training the top team. Clearly, he's been working on his English. He's got this whole fucking. That guy had like 800 children up there. He had like 4 kids, all about the same age, and his wife up there with him. He's like talking about how hard he worked and like, dude, he's done all the right things I think that you need to do. And I'm not talking about being successful in MMA, but being successful as a non-English native speaker in the UFC, where you want to gain some popularity with the American audiences, and it's very helpful if you speak English, you do other things, and he's working hard on it, and he's proud of his story. He shares that shit about his dad. He's like, Dad, I hope you're finally fucking proud of me.
Drops the bomb of all bombs.
Jesus, turns out he's got
thanks his mom for freaking growing up as a single mom and watching after him, and then drops the mic on his dad.
Yeah, I mean, and then by the end of it, the crowd's fucking showing him some love, and how can you not root for that guy? And that, I mean, that was a beautiful moment, man. And there's fucking little kids, they're all crying because they're so happy for their dad. It was a great thing, dude. I really liked it.
It's a touching moment for sure.
Yeah, and I hope that does something for him, like social media wise, etc. It would be good to see some people get behind him. You know what I mean? Because the UFC
got the
won't
skills, man. I'll tell you that. For a guy who's considered more a jiu-jitsu practitioner than anything, that motherfucker can crack, dude. He can crack. People better watch out. Him and Royval is going to be a great fight because Royval can crack too.
Yeah.
And Royval's been on a tear. That should be a really interesting fight. I knew going out of this fight, whether it was Moreno or Pantoja, that whoever fights Royval next is going to be a banger. Like, because that dude does not have boring fights.
Nope. Well, wrapping up the card, we had the 145-pound unification between the interim champion Yair Rodriguez, regular champ Alexander Volkanovski.
Yeah, beat down.
And we got Volkanovski winning by TKO 419 of round 3 in a very dominant performance.
I believe he took him down 5 times in the first round. Right?
Yeah. 5 in the first, 2 in the second, I do believe, or something like that. He had 7 total takedowns. And, dude, Volkanovski is the best fighter in the UFC, not named John Jones, without a doubt. And he might be better than John Jones pound for pound. It's so hard to tell.
Yeah, I don't know. Volk is just great everywhere.
What makes it hard to tell is just Jones in the 3-year layoff. Now he's come back and he beat Cyril Gane. But how do you compare that to a dude who's just been cranking out victories? Just fucking,
Alexander
in my mind,
the
beat
Great
Makhachev.
is the perfect nickname for him because he is the Great.
I mean, he's handled
everyone
in the division.
A laundry list of opponents.
I mean, and the shit that people had on him before was like, oh, he didn't beat Holloway really. Well, he put it into that.
Yeah, twice.
Yeah, he fucking put a stamp on that criticism. Everybody knows how well he did in that Makhachev fight. I mean, it's hard to say he lost that. I mean, he did technically a weight class above, but they're already talking about him getting another crack at it.
Yeah.
There's not really much left for him at featherweight unless like Aljamain Sterling vacates and goes up to 45 and gets an immediate title shot, which I could see happening. Don't have a problem with, actually.
You think he vacates or he tries to go for the double champ status and then vacates?
I think he vacates.
Think so? Yeah, Aljo is like a sportsman kind of guy. I don't really think he gives a fuck about the double champ thing.
I don't think so. I think a lot of the shine's off that double champ thing. We all know he can't defend both anyways. The only person that could do it was Amanda, and it only counts because there's not really a 45 division.
Yeah, they made up a division, but she did fight at 45.
No, she's good. I'm not trying to discredit her. I'm just saying there wasn't a long line of people waiting for the cracks at that 45 belt that she held.
Yeah, 100%.
So that helped.
Yeah, for sure.
So Volkanovski, though, I mean, what is there to say? People were talking about what a test this was going to be for him, and well, he passed that shit with flying colors, dude.
I'd say it was very similar to the fight that Yair had with Frankie a couple of years ago, where we just saw the holes in his grappling, and I think those holes are much smaller now. But when you're fighting the best of the best of the best, like everything's got to go right to win. And it just was one of those nights where everything didn't go right for Yair. And he had some good moments. You know, he was a game opponent for, as long as it lasted. But I think at the end, Volkanovski is just on a whole nother level than the entire division, man. It's not just Yair. You know what I mean? It's like everybody in the division. Good luck. I mean,
Volk outstruck him 66-40 on significant
Yeah.
strikes as well. So it wasn't like it was just a wrestle fuck and you just was scared to stand and trade with him. No, he was actually countering Yair, which when you look at their height difference, 5'6" to 5'11", it's really an impressive skill to be able to counter somebody when you're that fucking small.
And also, not to mention that he's 5'11" and is fast as
Yair,
fuck.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Yair is one of the fastest guys in the division. And honestly, Volk felt some of that and still just kept coming forward. You know what I mean? And there was some times where he got some pretty good kicks in, but it was like Yair would hit Volk with a nasty leg kick, and then Volk would hit him back with just as nasty. And it really spoke to Volkanovski's ability to just match whatever and just having a never ending pace, man. Because that's really what it was. Like when he finished that fight, he just ran him over. You know what I mean? Like it was like an avalanche that fucking Yair had he had no way of defending it. It was done. It was over. And it was a great fight for Volk.
I think a lot of Volkanovski, aside from the fact that he's really skilled, it boils down to what I was talking about earlier, is he has one of those intangible things that you can't account for until you feel it. I think much like Khabib had with his strength that you didn't understand it till you felt it in there.
Yeah.
Because of his background in rugby, and I know we've talked about it before on the show, but for those listening that might not be aware, I mean, the guy was a 220-pound professional rugby player, and he wasn't fat.
Yeah. He's jacked.
Yeah. And now he's a 145-pound fucking MMA fighter, but he has that strength. Like, he's got strength and stamina on a different fucking level from having that much muscle and moving it around. And dude, anybody that's watched rugby, you know how fucking physical that is?
And I think if you want to look at any example for real, look at that fight with Islam. Islam manhandles people like it's nothing, and he just couldn't do it to Volk because Volk was just too tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So where do you think he goes from here? You think he runs it back with Islam, or do you think he takes a fight like a Topuria or Aljamain Sterling?
I think a lot of it's going to depend on what happens with Sean O'Malley and Aljamain Sterling.
Mm.
I think if Aljo goes out and handily beats Sterling, I think he's going to call for the Volkanovski fight. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too.
Or just Sterling. I mean, the other way around.
O'Malley.
I mean, I'm saying if Aljo wins, he's going to call out fucking Volk, in my opinion. You know, whether he tries to hang on to the title or not, I kind of doubt, but I think that's what he'll do, especially with Merab just right there in the wings waiting. He's already been talking a lot about it, and I think that that's a good fight for both guys.
Yeah.
I like that fight better than him going back up and fighting Islam again, but I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
If he does that.
Both the guys from City Kickboxing going home with a couple broken arms, huh?
Mm-hmm. Dan Hooker
broke his arm, and then Volkanovski was talking about he needs to get a procedure on his arm, so he probably broke his arm too.
That's why I was thinking it might point even more towards that Aljo, as long as he's victorious against O'Malley, is because he's taking time out for surgery anyways, and that gives plenty of time for, Aljo not to be rushed, because Sterling's not going to take another fucking rushed title shot here like he did. He's been so vocal about this.
Yeah. Also, another little fold into it is Islam is most likely going to be defending his title against Oliveira in that same timeline.
Yeah, the Abu Dhabi card. Right?
Yeah. So would it really be? There's a chance that he couldn't get that back, and that's something he spoke about in the post-fight press conferences. If Oliveira were to win against Makhachev in Abu Dhabi, that he still would want to fight Makhachev over fighting for the 155 belt.
That's interesting, but There's two sides to every fight, though. So what on earth does Makhachev have to gain for accepting this fight with Volkanovski a second time?
Nothing.
In his mind, he's already won.
Yeah.
He's like, fuck your controversy.
Yeah.
Moving on. So I don't know. I mean, just
Pressure
because
by
Volk
the
wants it,
UFC?
you never know if he's going to be able to get it.
I'd say pressure from the UFC has a lot to do with it, though. Also, we've seen countless guys be goaded into fights that they shouldn't have taken.
This is true. Although the UFC really seems to love the Chechen fighters, and I don't really see them pressing them too much for anything. I don't know why, but I don't really see them. They don't. I mean, even like Chimaev, we were talking about earlier, he didn't get publicly reprimanded by the UFC at all.
Yeah, it's all behind closed doors.
All this stuff's been quiet. They seem to. We'll see. It was a good card though overall. Really, really fucking good card. Let's move on though and talk about. We've got an upcoming BKFC fight card. It's BKFC 47, and we've had their middleweight champ Dave Mundell on the show before. He's a great guy. Really fucking tough competitor. He's 6-1 in the BKFC, and he's going to be fighting Mike the Marine Richmond for this middleweight title.
Kind of a weird fold into this as well, as this is Richmond coming off his loss to Lorenzo Hunt in the title fight in his last fight.
Yeah, this is at light heavyweight, yes.
Yeah. So then he goes down. Cool. Kind of cool thing though when you talk about BKFC is how, if you're talented and you're willing to fight across divisions, there's really no shine you're going to lose from losing to a champion.
Yeah, so it's a unique situation for Mike the Marine Richmond in that he was undefeated, all right? He was the number one contender in 2 weight divisions. And so you're right, he did just lose at light heavyweight against Lorenzo Hunt in a fight that he was just about won, too. Like, it was a real back-and-forth affair where he basically KO'd Lorenzo Hunt, who, I can't remember if he beat the count or was saved by the bell or some shit happened. And then the very next, 20 seconds later, he's laid out in the second round by Hunt. Like, they both basically KO'd each other.
Yeah.
Hunt gets the victory. But it was in a weight class above, so what shine does he lose in the weight class below, where he also happens to be the number one contender? I say none. So it makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah, on the surface, it might be like, what the fuck? But when you look at it that way, it makes sense. Dude, Richmond is...
It's going to be a tough fight. Both guys are fucking dogs.
Dude, these guys, when you're talking about Lorenzo Hunt, Louis Palomino, Mike the Marine Richmond, and I'm going to include Dave Mundell in this group. I mean, he's 6-1. These top tier, these guys are hella fucking good.
Mm-hmm. Mundell especially. Mundell's got some really, really crisp punches. Like his ability to set his opponents up and just his combos are fucking nasty. But the fight against Francisco Ricci, bro. Oh my god!
I've never such a height disadvantage there, and he was coming in and landing and getting out and not getting hit. It was unbelievable.
Strange.
And now he's fighting. I mean, somebody that's his size, height wise, maybe even a little smaller than him.
Yeah.
I have no idea who to pick. Like, both these guys are so good, but what I do know beyond a shadow of a doubt is that it will be a banger of a fucking fight.
Yeah. I'm taking Mundell just because he's been on the show.
I like Mundell too. He's a really cool down.
Mike Richmond, you want me to pick you? Come on the show. Right.
And hopefully we can. I didn't want to bother Dave at all in the preparations for this. You know what I mean? When it starts getting close to these fights, it feels weird texting guys for interviews, but we're definitely going to hit him up afterward to see if he wants to come on the show again and talk about it, which would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't pick against the redneck.
Yeah, he's
that's my boy.
He is a dog. Both those guys are just dogs. There's no losers, and the winners are the fans for sure. Because this one's going to be a banger.
And that is a solid card overall. We've got light heavyweights, featherweights, bantamweights, straight down the card. There's some good women's flyweight bouts, middleweights too. I'm not going to go through all these names because most of us really don't know who they are, but they're starting to make names for themselves. I encourage everybody that's in any combat sports to tune into BKFC 47. I think the app price has gone up to $7.99 a month or some shit now, which is still absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
And moving on to end up the show, we have crazy boxing news.
Yep.
I mean,
The fight everyone thought never would materialize has now materialized.
we haven't got the official announcement, but every single indication says that Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou is fucking happening next.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for this fight, Paul. Like, I'm not going to lie. And it's not because I think, Ngannou's going to go out there and win. I'm excited because Francis Ngannou has gone out and fucking done everything he said he's going to do, despite this massive group of MMA fans that just want to suck on the fucking UFC teats and fucking blow Dana White and just love the brand so much that once Ngannou was gone, they're like, fuck that dude.
Yeah.
When he was there, we love his story. We want fighters to make more money. They don't want fighters to make more money if they're not in the UFC.
Yeah.
And since now he's left, and we had Dana try to fucking shit on him on the way out the door, you get Dana White going all over fucking MMA media, Paul. And what was he saying? Oh, we released him. We let him go. You didn't fucking release him. He left. He finished his contract. You couldn't renegotiate, and he left as the champ.
Yeah.
He wasn't fucking cut. Make it sound like they just, we just let him fucking go. Fuck that dude. And then what did he do? He shit all over the boxing, right? He was like, that's a stupid fight, the Ngannou Fury. Remember all that? Then what did he do? He tried to steal that fight with John Jones.
Yeah.
He sends fucking Tyson Fury an offer to fight John Jones. Supposedly there was two, boxing and MMA. Right after shitting on Ngannou for wanting the same thing. And so why does he doing that? Just to shit on Ngannou.
Yeah.
Dana White's one of the pettiest fucking men alive.
Yeah. He's petty.
Petty as fuck. And who's winning? Ngannou signs the big fucking contract. Ngannou's on the board. Ngannou's president of whatever Africa shit they're bringing over there for PFL. And I don't mean that to sound disrespectful, but I mean it was real important to him to bring MMA to Africa.
Yeah.
And they made him some sort of ambassador for that shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now all indications are this fight is happening. Eddie Hearn says it's happening. All the major boxing sites say it's happening.
Ariel
Helwani said it's happening.
Yeah.
Fury's out there saying that Ngannou's going to make 10 to 50 times more than he ever made in the UFC.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Now, that's my rant. What are your thoughts?
I'm more worried about the fight side of it. See, I like it as Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou in a boxing match. That's what I'm paying for.
Like straight in the fucking ring?
Yeah. Like Marks and Queensberry rules, fucking boxing. This whole idea that there is this like kind of boiling rumor that it could be a hybrid boxing match with smaller gloves and all this shit like that. Miss me with that bullshit because I don't care about that.
Yeah, they're talking about it being Queensberry rules still, but with the 4-ounce MMA gloves and in a cage instead of a boxing ring.
No, thank you. I want a boxing match. Francis, the whole idea of what you were doing was a boxing match. Tyson Fury, the whole reason you said you wouldn't do the Jones thing because you're a boxer. So box each other. You know what I mean? And that's my only real qualm with this fight. I really like the fight. I mean, it should be interesting. I think Francis has no fucking chance, but I'm glad to see anybody get paid.
I mean, even if he were to land a lucky punch, I don't think that necessarily knocks out Tyson
I don't think
Fury.
So either,
I mean, after seeing him take the fucking death blows of fucking Wilder and rise up like the goddamn dead in that first fight, and that was when he was, out of shape, Fury still. Like and then still fight the dude two more times.
Yeah. Well, and the question becomes as well: does Tyson Fury go one of two routes? Does he fight it like old Tyson Fury, because he knows he's so much more skilled than Francis, he tries to do a little bit of showmanship with his defense and his parrying strikes and shit like that, and get caught? Or does he go out there like the 2 times he fought Deontay Wilder because he knows what it's like to fight a crazy power puncher and try to put Francis away quick? Because there's a very good chance that he still employs that Kronk style and puts it on Francis. And I don't know if Francis is ready for that. I don't think so. Like, as much as it does leave some more openings that like maybe his old style didn't, that motherfucker is 6'8", 300 pounds.
6'9".
You know what I mean? Like, although Francis is big, Francis is like 6'6", 300 pounds. Fucking Tyson is bigger than Francis also. Like,
yeah, Francis has never faced anything like that. Nobody in mixed martial arts has, not in a boxing ring. Not of Tyson Fury's incredible skill set, and that size, dude. That size is crazy.
Size is nuts. Because
So,
he
yeah.
uses it in the ring. He puts that size on you at times.
It's not like he's like Bob Sapp in there, just
Mm-mm.
only because he's big is he winning. No, he moves like a fucking much smaller guy.
Moves like a middleweight, hits like a heavyweight, looks like a super heavyweight.
So yeah, I agree. Ngannou has basically zero chance of winning, but I don't think that's the victory for
Give him
Ngannou.
10%.
Like Ngannou wins by getting the fucking fight.
Yeah.
Just like Conor won
Conor
by
Floyd,
getting the
yeah.
fight. Like that's the victory there, bro. You snagged the bag. There's gonna be a great build up. I'm gonna buy the pay-per-view, and I'm an Ngannou fan. I'm a Tyson Fury fan, and I'm gonna watch Tyson Fury beat Ngannou. And
I truly hope that in my heart that at the end of the day, no matter what Francis gets paid, that he doesn't turn, not in the actual side because they're two very different people, but in the fight side of it, into what Conor McGregor has become since he fought Floyd.
yeah,
Because I swear to God, if Conor McGregor goes from Eddie Alvarez to fighting Khabib, it's a much different fight than going and fighting Floyd and taking 3 years off and all the shit he did in between fighting Floyd and fighting Khabib, that he does not do something similar like in the PFL. Like, he fights Tyson Fury and it's a close fight, but he loses some lopsided decision or it's so kind of similar to Conor, gets some standing TKO or some shit like that, that he does not turn around and go, all right, well, all these business ventures are coming now and all this shit. And now I'm going to fight in 3 years in the PFL, which for Francis Ngannou would mean that he's 42 because he's 38 right now, 39. So he's 41, 42 at that time. They bring in somebody good because they knew what they had to do to not only pay that guy, but put on a big event for a Francis Ngannou fight, and he goes out and loses in PFL because that would fucking suck to watch.
Yeah,
because
sure
that is what the UFC will cling to if that happens.
Yeah.
Because they'll go, Psh, see, told you. He stepped out of the UFC because he knew he was gonna get fucked up by John.
Yeah, that would suck. Let's hope
That's
that
the only
happen.
way it goes bad from here if you're Francis Ngannou. If you go and you lose to Tyson Fury, you get a bag, but you can go to PFL and do what you do. Everything's okay, but don't get blinded by that money. You know what I mean?
Well, there is some talk about it being some sort of exhibition.
The exhibition is going to be a circus. We've seen this.
I don't know. The Roy Jones Mike Tyson fight was technically an exhibition to Tyson win at that motherfucker.
Yeah,
like that was a great fucking fight. Like
it was a great fight, but it was also like both guys were out of their career. Both guys were, there was no crazy stakes. There's stakes in this fight.
now, I'm sure the WBC is more than willing to make it so the title is not on the line. I'm sure it's boxing. There's some fucking workaround where the title's not at stake and it could still be a sanctioned boxing. Do you know what I mean?
How crazy would it be?
Because those are the two things: is that they don't want the title to be at risk, and licensing Ngannou as an 0-0 fighter. But if they're doing it in the Middle East, I don't know what commissions are over there, so who gives a shit?
I really think it matters.
And if the WBC is willing to let Tyson Fury, why would they have a problem not putting the belt at risk? So that solves both those issues and just make it a real fight.
What if it was for the belt? Because Ngannou has talked about how he was wanted a boxing career. First fight in the boxing wins WBC championship.
Well, that'd be crazy.
That would be literally nuts. I like to play in that realm sometimes, though, because
that would be one of the coolest things.
It would be
one
of the coolest
things. Knowing Ngannou's story, it's real life Rocky, but even better.
Even better, yeah.
Like Rocky just came from like the hood. Like Ngannou was on a fucking boat and then sand mines, and jail, and Jesus Christ, bro. Like,
it's like, I'll tell you a story that Sean Strickland told on Joe Rogan. He hangs out because they both train in the same gym, right? And I guess like a day went by and it was Francis's birthday, and Francis didn't tell anyone in the gym. So the day goes by, and he brought it up to him, and he's like, what the hell, Francis? You didn't tell anybody it was your birthday. Like we could have at least went to dinner or something. And he goes, Sean, in the salt mines there are no birthdays. It's just another day.
Jesus.
I was
Yeah.
like, damn. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that
exactly.
mentality, that is the epitome of like coming from the bottom,
Mm-hmm. So I mean, that would be amazing. But hopefully, we'll get an official announcement, and these minor details like that, we'll find out.
Yeah. Well, I think that about wraps it up for us today.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'd like to thank the sponsor for this week's show, which is Binoid CBD. You can get great deals on their CBD, Delta-9 THC products, as well as deals from the UFC store on the latest in apparel. If you simply go where?
SWAT MMA.com, or you can head over there, click the gear button, buy a t-shirt, and support the podcast. Then head over to Instagram and follow us at SWAT MMA Podcast.
Thanks, everybody.
Peace.